Welcome to part 2 of our conversation about creating sacred space and sacred ceremony and how this has influenced our lives in ways that everyone out there can incorporate more of the sacred in their life.
Welcome to Modern Sages Podcast.
I'm Jen Gilbreth.
And I'm Candace Coons.
With over 25 years combined, we have delivered messages from beyond,
explored ancient healing wisdom, and integrated these profound teachings into our everyday life.
We are passionate about creating new ways of being human in the modern age by integrating the wisdom of the past with the present and coming into remembrance of who we truly are.
Are you ready to change your relationship to life itself? If the answer is yes, your journey begins now.
So excited, going back from what we shared in part 1, really it just helped us reiterate the importance of creating sacred space, calling upon the directions. It's so beautiful. But before we jump into that, because it could be so easy to just dive in,
Yes,
I wanted to share with you what we're drinking today. I have some green tea with a little bit of turmeric. Now, green tea we're just going way back to the basics, green tea it's so good. It's like a natural caffeine. So it kind of helps boost your energy without the side effects of maybe being jittery or it taking away from your sleep. It can just kind of help keep you moving throughout the day if you feel like you're hitting a low. But if you're worried about drinking coffee or caffeine to keep you up at night, green tea is the perfect substitute in that space.
Yes. And again, it's full of antioxidants.
Yes.
It's actually really good for you. And so I know just the other day, I had a matcha latte, which is with green tea, but it's like a latte.
Oh, that sounds so
that
good.
was so good. Yeah, I just love it so much. So yes, green tea is so wonderful. It doesn't have as much caffeine.
Yeah, and it can help boost your metabolism. It improves digestion. There's so many amazing benefits on top of it helping boost your energy.
Yes. Well, as you can tell, I'm in a different spot. I'm actually doing this call with you from California. So I'm in my in-laws' beautiful backyard space. They just have tons of gardens and plants and trees and beautiful bushes, but it's just a gorgeous day here in California. And I just feel so lucky to be able to have this conversation with you about creating sacred ceremony in such a beautiful natural space. So I'm feeling very blessed right now. Yeah, the last conversation, we really dove deep into how to create sacred space. And this is so important because when you're doing sacred ceremony, it's important to create an energy that is aligned with spirit. And so when you call upon the directions, it kind of creates this, I call it a clean workshop, a clean workspace in order to do the healing work, in order to do your work of manifestation or whatever that you are doing in that sacred space. And it reminds me is like, a lot of people, they talk about when they're working with gifts of spirit and they're working with the other side, they get very concerned about the kind of energies that they're working with when they want to make sure that they're working with energies of love and light. And what I have found over the years is that, that the techniques of creating shields or bubbles or things like that weren't as effective because it would create a temporary clean space for me to receive messages and to keep lower frequency energies out for a small period of time. But it was almost like spirit was knocking at the window. It was just waiting for an energy shift to come into my space. And what I discovered about creating sacred space and about myself and the tube of light meditation that we do is that the best way to keep negative energy and low frequency energies out is to shift me, is to shift my energy. Because the way that the laws of the universe work with energy is like attracts like. So if I set intention to align with my higher self. And I do the tube of light meditation, aligning myself, attuning myself to that oneness energy with me and my higher self and my creator. And then I call upon the directions. That's such a powerful intention I'm creating. I'm creating this complete shift of energy within myself. And I'm also aligning with that energy of love, of energy of light, of respect, of gratitude. It changes me. It changes my energetic frequency. And I surround myself with this light. And then anything that happens in that space with sacred ceremony has such a more powerful impact for me and the people that I work with when I follow those steps for myself. And I think that's the reason I felt like it was so important. And one of the reasons I felt anyway, that it was so important to really talk about like how to create sacred space is because of that. It's not so much about, you know, creating a bubble of light or protection or this and that. It's that it changes frequency and it increases your power, and it keeps your workshop and the space that you're doing this transformative work clean and aligned.
I completely agree. It's interesting how when you can palpably feel the difference when creating sacred space. You can feel the change, you can feel that space that comes within. And I just think it's so beautiful to create that physically, because I know for me when I do sessions, I always meet with the people that I'm working. I meet with their ancestors in this grove or in this circle in like this garden area, and it's kind of like the sacred space in spirit, but it's so much more profound when we can create that sacred space as well in the connection in the physical realm too. And so it has transformed where I'm at, and even in that space, and it kind of makes your room and your environment a lot more of a space of love and of light and of just overall. But when you have that and you're constantly calling upon the directions, you're constantly creating that sacred space, it's giving you the power so that you don't have to feel like everything relies on you, but you're fully connected in a powerful way that's just constantly there. And it's a palpable feeling. It's hard to even explain, but it's like you can tell when someone's created that sacred space. You can tell when you go into someone else's space and they've created that. And you can also tell when you've created that, like instantly.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I would prepare and I create sacred space for my clients before they would come see me. And without saying a word, you know, to anyone, automatically my students or the people that would come into that space would like, all of a sudden they would get very quiet and very reverent. Like they could feel that energy of reverence in that space. Absolutely. And then they're usually one of the first things they would say is, gosh, it feels so good here. It just feels so good. It feels so peaceful. And so that is this is before I taught them about sacred space or talked about creating sacred space, but they could feel, even someone coming from the outside in could feel this energy of reverence. It feels like a temple space is what it feels like when you do that. And it is a reminder of our power and what we're capable of. Like we are capable of creating a sacred temple kind of energy around us. We're capable of creating that for not only our sacred ceremonies, but for our homes, for our properties. And I don't know if everybody is aware of like how amazing and peaceful of a space that you can create for yourself. I don't know if they understand their power, because a lot of times when I come in to do a property cleansing, part of the healing process, because a property cleansing has got like different sections to it where you're not just clearing out the negative energy, but you also do a healing for the people that live in that space where you help them gain their power back, help them remember their own power.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of that third phase of property cleansing, you come in and you sanctify the property, which with frankincense and myrrh and this energy that when you leave, it feels like not only a property cleansing has been done, but you feel like you've walked into sacred land or something. The whole energy of the home, the land, everything is very different. It's very calm and peaceful and joyous there. So it's such a powerful tool that I feel like everybody should know how to do. It's not something that just medicine women should know how to do or medicine men. This is something that we should all do because we're all one with the divine. We all have the divine inside of us. And we all need to recognize that power we have to not only change our environment, but what's interesting, like we go back to talking about what I was first mentioning is, but when you do it, you have to be accountable for yourself. You know, it really starts with you being accountable, being aware of the energy that you carry.
We talked about calling upon the East, which is about new beginnings, new arrivals, seeing things from a higher perspective.
Yeah.
The South, which is all about the passion, the fire, the refiner's fire, getting in there and making things happen. Where the West was all about emotion and how we can feel it, and it's safe to feel emotion. It's part of being human. Then we go into the North, which is all about calling upon the ancestors. It's about feeling, it's about understanding and embracing our life here. And we talked a lot about generational things too. And then we talk about connecting above, which is to God. It's our higher energies, our higher angels. It's, our archangels. It's our ascended masters, it's the high council. So all of those higher spaces to be with us. And then we go down to Mother Earth and we call upon the elementals. We call upon Mother Earth and her great healing power. And then we go into the seventh direction, which is all about our heart center. It's all about aligning. We've created the circle. We've brought heaven and earth together, and it all connects. All of those areas all connect powerfully within our heart center. And so even doing property cleansings, we both have done property cleansings, and it is so much more powerful when you are not the one doing it fully, is you're inviting them, you're doing a healing with them, helping them reclaim their power, which ultimately is them setting that space for their intention, for their family, for their wealth, for their health, all of that. But it comes from within, and we have that power within. And that's how it should be, is reclaiming that truth, reclaiming that power, but calling upon that. We always say, I am that I am. I am the divine in the form, in a manifestation of Jen, or in the form of who I am. And it's fully aligning heaven, earth, all the elementals, all the energy around us, so that we have this bubble around us, this energy space everywhere we go. And it's just such a beautiful reminder that like we all are connected to this sacred. And you don't have to be a healer. You don't have to only be doing sessions or Reiki or cleansing or anything like that to call upon this power. You have the ability. It's all within you. It's just remembering the sacred truth that we so easily forget.
Yes. And, it's part of the reason too why I just loved even the title of our podcast, Modern Sages, so much, because it's not just about the fact that we're medicine women and we're sharing this information with the public. Our passion in life is helping people remember their own power, to remember their own divinity, to not recognize that they have the stage within themselves. And so that's what my favorite aspect of that seventh direction, because the last show we talked about east, south, west, north, above, below, but we cut off right at that after below, and we didn't really talk about the seventh sacred direction at the last show, which is, like you were saying, that reconnection into the heart space, that center of the wheel that connects all of those other directions. And it's the most important direction, because it's like when we go to that seventh direction, it's the remembrance that We are the embodiment of the divine in form that connects everything together, that we're one with. And that is so empowering when you say that, when you're saying those words out loud. I am that I am. I am the embodiment of the divine in form as Jen or as Candace, where you say your name. And saying that out loud, I am the embodiment of the divine in form, is so beautiful, because it's that reminder. And how often it's like, even if you come into remembrance and you go through an awakening and you're like, gosh, I know this, I am the divine, I'm one with all things. Even after that, you're going from time to time fall back into the dream of Maya. It's part of your human journey. It doesn't mean that you are a failure or that you've taken steps back on your spiritual journey, because there's nothing that's unholy about being human. And part of the journey is that forgetting. It's the getting really into it, getting really into your experience and being here, and then coming back home into remembrance of who you are, and this ebb and flow of this energy, right? So, and it does happen more and more as you practice. You remember sooner, you don't go to sleep for so long, and those cycles of sleep and being awake begin to shorten, then you start to be awake more often. But at the same time, you're still, going to be drawn into the drama of your life one way or another. It's just part of the journey.
It doesn't mean that you're any less of a spiritual being, or, I don't really like the word evolved being, but if you're focusing on that, if you fall back in, it doesn't mean you're bad or wrong, or none of your changes are taking.
Yes.
It's just, that's part of the human journey, and nothing is wrong with that. And I think that's why creating sacred space and stepping into sacred ceremony is so empowering, because it's reminding us that we are of this divine essence, and we can partake in things that are very holy and that can heal and that can change and that can cleanse who it is that we are. But it's not just a one-time thing. It's like, it's a daily choice. It's a thing where sometimes we'll fall back in and then we'll come back out and then we'll fall in. I'm one who battles a lot with anxiety. And a lot of my anxiety stems from people not liking me or worrying about people talking badly about me behind my back. So that is like what holds me back in life the most, is I'm like, people are going to say mean things about me. And as you know, Candace, my life has been a mirror of that happening so many times.
Yes, it has.
Even to my face and just in that space. But our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses. But if I were to say, I'm going to stand on my power and then not expect for those things to happen, I wouldn't be growing. And it's like, it's a choice. I've healed that element, and then it might pop up again. And then I look at it, and then I work through healing in there, and then it pops up again. But knowing that I'm not making myself wrong for having anxiety. We have Thanksgiving coming up, and having family all together for so long sometimes can feel a little bit overwhelming for me. I naturally in the past have fallen into the pattern of wanting to people please. So I'll do everything that I can to make sure everyone else has a good time, even if I'm not having a good time. And this year I'm aware of that. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to show up when I want to. I'm going to participate, show all my love, do all that I want. But if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to force myself to do something like I have in the past. So knowing that, we've done so much sacred ceremony in helping reclaim those truths of myself. But it's a daily choice. It's a choice. It isn't a battle. It's a choice to choose how we're going to live each day. And sacred ceremony and all of this has been such a beautiful combination to say, hey, Thanksgiving is coming up. I don't want to be angry at the end of the week. I still want to be empowered. So what can I choose to do differently? How can I set myself up? And that's also creating sacred space every day before I meet up with everybody. Because I know that's what I need to be my best self, but to feel my best. Yeah. And so it's creating that time. It's creating that space to say, I am a human I'm going to have emotion. I'm going to get frustrated, but also I can honor that. And how can I set time aside before to take care of myself so that
Yes.
my strength is stronger than already being depleted before I show up?
Yes. And I just have to say, I'm just so proud of you, Jen. I'm just so proud of you. I mean, that takes so much strength and so much awareness for you to, first of all, to recognize the anxiety, to implement tools to assist you. And that's what I love about this conversation is that these are tools,
Yes.
and this is not about saying, oh gosh, I've reached my goal and my state of enlightenment and my awakening, and I'm not going to be here to have the human experience anymore. I'm not going to have the challenges. What I have discovered with people who've gone through this awakening process, it's very similar to what you're just talking about, where it's like, I come back into remembrance of who I am. I have these amazing metaphysical and spiritual experiences of awakening and remembrance. And now I have these tools that I implement to assist me at times when I'm in the dream, or I'm being pulled into the Maya, into the insecurities or the fears or the anxiety. I have tools I can use to bring me back into remembrance, to help me stay grounded and centered
Absolutely.
in that. Because it's not here, you're not in this life. First of all, we can never, like we were talking about before, weigh our value or our worth according to the things that have happened to us in our lives or the challenges that we have. We are so much bigger than that. At the same time, you can count on, while you're here, you're going to have those human experiences, and that you're going to have these polarities that come in and out of your life. And so what can you do to place tools of remembrance for yourself and your life? And that's, I've talked to you about this, and I've talked to other people about this, where it's like, because you've had this major awakening, don't think that you're not going to be pulled back into these old insecurities. You're going to approach them differently. You're going to see them in a more conscious, awake way, because we dove in there and we explored it and swam all through the ocean of it. But it's still going to be there. So what can you do to place certain tools in your life to empower you, to help you feel stronger, to bring you back to yourself?
Absolutely.
And that is one of the biggest gifts that creating a sacred space has done for me, because it's like I do it every day. I do it every day before my meditation and before my yoga
Me
and
too.
before I pull cards on myself or do a reading on someone else. So it's a daily practice, and I need that. I need that daily practice to bring me back to myself and into my center. And then I approach life from that angle, and it's night and day difference. I can tell the
Absolutely.
days that I do it and the days that I don't.
And I think even with that is once we create that sacred space and we're comfortable in that area, and that's part of just what we're learning and experiencing, it gives us the space for when we have more of those ceremonies, the sacred ceremonies, so that it kind of feels like it's a lot bigger. Sometimes it's a lot more soul changing. It's like, let's say you are running a marathon and you take a break, you drink some water, and then you keep going. It's like, I feel like if you're using that analogy, creating sacred ceremony or experiencing that is kind of refueling your spirit so that then you can keep running, which is the sacred space. It's creating that
So
every
true.
day. And so knowing that is like sacred ceremony has blessed my life immensely. And so I feel like let's jump into that and talk about what even that means and what kind of sacred ceremony can people participate in, because sometimes we do need to be taken outside of our ordinary spiritual practices or ordinary life to be reaffirmed, to have these great experiences, to then implement it. Because as we all know, it's so much easier to go to some conference or read a book and to listen to it and think,
Mhm.
objectively, that sounds so amazing. My life would be so perfect. I'm going to do it. But then
Yep.
when you actually get home, you're like, oh, I have to go and do this now. I have to implement this. And it's a lot harder, but that's what life's about. And so let's dive into that aspect a little bit more.
Yes. Well, I mean, you think about our lives, and we have sacred ceremony implemented into our mainstream society, with marriages and funerals and blessings for babies and baptisms, and um, you can see that there's some of these sacred ceremonies, but you don't have a whole lot of them. But at the
Mhm.
same time, there is such power. It's like when people can't deny the power of a sacred ceremony and how that influences your life. You think about when you were married and you went through that sacred ceremony of marriage, and it's something you will never ever forget. It influences you on such a deep level. It changes your life. And there's other sacred ceremonies that you can do that maybe not this much or this profound of a life change necessarily as far as marriage or death or anything like that. But at the same time, it does have tremendous power.
Mhm.
And it's something that once you participate in, you don't forget. It has a shift. It creates some shift in you on so many different levels. It's
Yes.
sort of like, the difference between when you think about a dream and you have at night and you forget about it maybe by noontime, maybe earlier than that. But when you have a visitation dream, or you've journeyed in a journey with a medicine woman or man, and you have this experience, you will remember the details of that visitation or that journey for years, because there was that experience shifted you energetically on some level, right? So that is the power that you're working with when you do sacred ceremony. Like, it creates a permanent shift no matter what. And this is what I always talk about with my students, like when we do a sacred ceremony called the sand painting ceremony, or we do the despacho ceremony, where you are working with these different levels of consciousness and you're healing and shifting and manifesting. And I always emphasize that with my students, like, don't think that what you did is a small thing. Like, this is a big deal. Things are going to change. They are going to change. Believe that what you did was enough, and it's going to happen, and it does. So, it's extremely powerful, but there's many different kinds of ceremonies. There's simple ceremonies all the way to more complex, intricate ceremonies that you can do. But I feel that no matter what, when you do a sacred ceremony, you want to create a sacred energy or space around you, and you want to set intention. So if you call in the directions, awesome. If that's too much, then you can do something more simple. You can light a candle, you can smudge, and use incense to clear the heavy energy and to get in the mode of your sacred ceremony. You
Absolutely.
could do a prayer and just stand there and just set intention with spirit and say, this is what I'm doing, and I want all of my angels, my creator to be here with me, my ancestors of light. I would love all of this wonderful energy of love and light around me. And this is what I'm doing in this sacred ceremony. I want to heal or clear this away, or I want to manifest this. And I ask for all of the support of the universe to be with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And seal it with energies of gratitude. And then you just set the intention about that which you wish to release by writing it in your journal or on a piece of paper, that which you're wanting to heal or release. I love fire because I feel that fire is so powerful. So if you can't go out and have a sacred fire like what we do during sacred ceremony, I have a little flower pot that I use inside of my house with sand or dirt in it. And you can just write something on a tiny piece of paper that you're wishing to release or heal, and tear it up into tiny, tiny little pieces, and just light it over this little pot with dirt or whatever in it, and let it burn and make a tiny little fire in your house, and then cover it with dirt so there's no heat or anything when you're done with it. And then you're burying it and releasing it that way. That's a great way to kind of create a smaller, more simple ceremony.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so amazing to know that you can do obviously things at home. And it's so funny because you go to the fire and I always go to water. I love using water and everything always. And so I'm even thinking like an amazing simple ceremony is like maybe you draw your bath, maybe you put some candles in there, or I have like this diffuser that has kind of like a light on it and it's very dim. So when I'm wanting to have ceremony, I just turn the lights off and I have like that diffuser going. And, you know, you can put Epsom salts, you can put like some crushed roses, you can put whatever kind of herbs you want in there, or even just oils or whatever that is. And as you're doing that, it's like, I like to do that where I say a prayer before I call upon the directions, I open up space. I say a prayer. I offer up a space of just wanting to love and to honor and say, I'm really interested in shifting this area. So while I'm here, I'm open to receiving all the guidance that I need, as well as releasing things that are no longer serving me, and then staying in the bath until the water is completely drained. So it's like it's coming completely off of you. And then I like to hop in the shower and just rinse off as well. So it's like releasing everything. But water is such an amazing element to add into emotion and to assist you in that space. So something as simple as that is so profound. And even when I got started into being a medium, I lived at my sister's house, and literally every single night I would get in the tub. And it was like after dinner, she just knew that I would get in the tub. And we always made jokes about it. But it was in those sacred times, I wasn't even aware of it. But I would have journey work, or I'd meditate, or I'd meet my ancestors at the ocean. And they'd walk me into the water and they would teach me things about myself that I didn't know. And I wasn't even aware that I was doing it. But it was how it really helped me step into courage of really honoring that. So having those simple ceremonies where you set the intention, I want to release this, or I'm opening up to this, I would love this insight. And obviously closing with gratitude and in that space of like this humble love and light is so powerful. And then working with you, Candace, we have really gone into also doing sacred ceremony together. One that we do in the shamanic path is a soul retrieval, where so this had that changed my life forever. And a soul retrieval is, we might have experiences where we're wounded, or we feel like part of who we are, or part of our soul is fragmented and kind of hidden or kept away to keep us safe. And we all have different fragments, or we might experience something very traumatic, or maybe not even that traumatic, but it could be where we've lost part of our soul, or it's just been hidden somewhere to keep us safe. And so in the soul retrieval, you do a meditation, you help guide me to this area in which I go into these different caves and I bring back those parts of my soul that I have lost. And being able to do that was so empowering for me that like it changed my life. Like absolutely the things that I was.
It changes everybody's lives. Like it's the most powerful journey that you can do.
And it was like so amazing because in that same space, going back to Thanksgiving, that was part of what I lost, was who like honoring myself and honoring that I matter, that I don't have to have everyone's approval to matter. My soul is important because my soul is important, not because someone gives me value. And taking back that part of my soul was part of my soul retrieval in that sacred ceremony that I'm aware of now. I reclaim that. And it's continuously having tools like we talked about to implement what I learned in that soul retrieval.
Yeah, I love how you talked about how journeys are life transforming. And it is a ceremony because it's considered one of the most powerful healing journeys or ceremonies that you can do in the shamanic path. It's not something that you can just kind of jump into, though, because going into an altered state of consciousness to really go deep into a soul retrieval journey, it takes some practice. To be able, it's just like if you're working with a past life regressionist who's someone who's helping with past life regression, or having you explore where some of these phobias or traumas originated from. You don't just automatically go into that space. It takes a few sessions of working with your practitioner and going into deeper meditation. But when you do, and you have that kind of focused in energy and focused intention and discipline, it creates change. It creates permanent healing, permanent change in your life. And that's what journeys do. And sacred ceremony, like a soul retrieval does, is it permanently changes you. And every person I've ever done a soul retrieval with talks about that. And my personal experience was like that. I was never the same after that. Just the way that I saw my life. The other thing I just loved what you were talking about is the power of doing a bath ceremony. And it's so simple. It really is. I mean, all you have to do is just set an intention, light a candle, put some soft music on, use essential oils that you feel drawn to, or like you were saying, the flowers into the bath water. I will never forget a sacred ceremony I did years ago when I was first starting on my healing path. This is before I met with my shaman and trained with my shaman. But I was really focusing on my healing path, which led me to my shaman, of course. I had become aware of how much I had given my power away in order and had done things in my life to make those that I loved comfortable around me, even though it wasn't right for me. It made me uncomfortable. And I pushed myself into decisions or situations or whatever that weren't really what I was comfortable with, but I gave my energy, or I gave my power over to, and it was usually to people that I love, that I care about. But then later I struggled with those decisions because they were inauthentic and they weren't right for me. And so I gave my power away again and again doing that, right? I gave that over to someone else instead of standing in my truth and what was right in my heart. So I created a sacred ceremony with a bath where I kind of like gave myself my own kind of baptismal kind of rebirth kind of bath ceremony where I lit candles. I had actually flowers that I put into my bath water, and I had essential oils that I used and soft music. And I called in my guides to be with me and to support me with my healing ceremony. And I set intention that I was the old me that made decisions that were inauthentic to my heart. I was releasing her. And so when I took the bath, I thought about it. I thought about my insecurities at the time, that part of me that gave that power because I was afraid of not being loved or accepted, or all those energies and feelings that gave me that impulse to make those decisions that weren't right for me. I just meditated on that as I was taking the bath, and just focused on angels surrounding me and loving me and supporting me and giving me that compassion. And then when I was done and I felt complete with it, I gave thanks for the experience and those experiences in my life and what they taught me. And I stood up and I released that bath water. And I remember as the bath water was being released, it was like a part of me, a part of my life experience was going down the drain. It was washing off of me, away from me permanently.
I love that.
And it was really powerful. Like I remember it. And that was when, gosh, my sons were really young. That was 15 plus years ago. And so, and look how that stood with me. It was like, as soon as you even mentioned it, it was like those memories came back to me, and the promise I made to myself that day, was so profound. So, sacred ceremony is so beautiful, and anybody can do this. And I'm hoping that this conversation is going to inspire people, because like we were mentioning that first show, I feel like sometimes that people are kind of throwing away the idea of the sacred, or implementing more of the sacred in their lives in general, or they give that power to someone else or something else, and they don't realize that they can create the sacred. They can create sacred space for themselves. They can change the energy of not only themselves, but their environment, their properties. They can create healing ceremonies. You could do so many things because you have the power of the whole universe inside of you. There is no reason why you can't create life transforming ceremonies and space for yourself and for the people that you love.
I think
It's a beautiful thing.
It's so powerful. And even knowing that too is like honoring the space that connects us to the past. It connects us to the ancient ways, is because even in that space, I'm learning a lot about Norse traditions. And even for Yule, what they did then, it was a ceremony. They had stuff then, and going into even like shamanic practices, is they also, like, when people had big significant experiences, they had blessing ways, right? When a girl moves into having her moon time, instead of it being like, oh, good luck, it was a celebration. When a mom's about to have birth, to give labor, they have a ceremony then. Maybe when you're going through menopause, or when you're losing the death of a loved one, is like everyone gathered together and had this community and focus on this healing. And so honestly, even implementing ceremony at home connects us to our roots. It connects us to our ancestors. It connects us to the wisdom of the past, because they were here before us. They know a lot more than we know. So we can draw upon that wisdom. And that's part of what sacred ceremony does.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, I love blessing ways. And I feel like these rites of passage, we focus a lot on the women, because we do blessing ways for women with their moon time and before they give birth to a new life. We gather the wise women of their tribes, and they give a blessing to the woman, and by giving her a foot bath and putting her a crown of flowers around her head, and doing a henna tattoo on her tummy, and creating beads for her to wear while she's in labor, to remind her of the strength of her sisters and the blessings they gave her as she embarked in this time of motherhood. It's just so empowering and beautiful. But men need it too.
Absolutely.
And, in the times of the ancient times, they had these rite of passages for the males as they were moving into adulthood, vision quest ceremonies, or taking them out into the wild and having them really go within and connect them with their inner strength and their own power. And coming into manhood, that was a huge thing. And they had sacred ceremonies for men during these other rites of passage in their life too, with loss and change and all of those things. And you don't see that very much anymore. And it's really sad, because those things were perceived as evil, across the landscape for so many years. We talked about the witch wound and how that affected the indigenous cultures, the Native Americans and the pagan and the earth-based traditions, because a lot of those traditions and those sacred ceremonies were lost, or they were hidden or put aside and shamed, for so long. And it's so sad, because those were opportunities for us to connect with the divine, to remember our divinity, to remember our power, to connect with our tribe, our ancestors, and all the wisdom that had been passed down from generation to generation. And so I feel like as we move forward in the Aquarian age and we reclaim this back into our lives, because the Aquarian age is about integration. It's not about saying, you know what, it's shameful for you to connect with Mother Earth and evil. And, it's like, it's shameful to be in this human experience, or those are the old paradigms and the old ideas of the Dark Ages that have been transmuted and healed down to a cellular level with all of us on a collective level. And as we move forward and we heal this and we reclaim this wisdom and this connection, it's going to increase our connection with our creator, because we start seeing our creator and mirroring back to us and our friends and the people that we talk to. I look at you, Jen, and I see the creator. You look at me, you see the creator. We look at Mother Earth, we see the creator. We look at our animals, we look at the water, we look at the breeze moving through the trees, the leaves of the trees, we see the creator. We are so connected everywhere. And that is the beauty of what we're talking about, because it's that remembrance, it's that reconnection, that reclamation of the wisdom teachings that brought us back into us and our interconnection, to our creator of all things. And it doesn't matter. Does it really matter what you call it? Do you think that the creator of all things cares if you call it Heavenly Father or Mother or Great Spirit or the universe or the One or the all-knowing or the big G? I mean, I don't know. I mean, does it really matter?
Yeah, if you think about that too, I just had that thought, is like, we have different roles for different people, right? Like, ultimately, we love all of our friends, we love all of our family, but we might have different connections with people. And so some might call me Jen, I might go by Jennifer, I might go by Jenny. And so it's kind of that same concept where it's like, it just depends upon, like, the creator is not going to hold you back or make you wrong if you are calling it something different than someone else's. And I think this is a perfect segue for that, because even if maybe you've experienced trouble or shame or whatever, and you're going through your own spiritual journey and you're awakening, we're all being awakened, most of us, in different ways, and we have to go back to reclaim our truths. But we don't have to disregard what we experienced growing up. Is we can take those things, we can see, okay, I love that, I didn't love that, this was perfect. But also, we don't have to disregard spiritual needs altogether, because that's so easy for someone to be like, I don't believe in this anymore, so I'm not going to believe in anything, which is fine. But at the same time, when you can create sacred space, when you can call upon sacred ceremony, when you can reclaim that sacred connection, then it doesn't matter what you label it, but we are spirit before we're physical. That's a matter of fact, that's what it is.
It just is what it is.
And so we can choose whether or not we want to live into that or not. But ultimately, that just is what is. And we can find ways to connect in, or we don't have to. But it's going to give you more of a connection. It's going to help you reclaim truth. It's going to help you heal and have that space within to know, I am divine, I am connected. And sacred space and sacred ceremony is a perfect way to heal if you have been wounded by religion, if you are moving through your own spiritual journey, if you're trying to figure out what's right for you. It's a perfect place to start. It's so personal. So why not?
Yeah, why not? It's interesting because even those who deny spirituality, they've been like you were saying, traumatized by things that have happened in the past. And so they go the other direction, they pendulum and say, I become agnostic, or I'm just not going to believe in God at all. I'm not going to believe in source. What I've recognized with these individuals who've gone through those journeys is that at some point the rug of life is going to pull it out from under you and have you go back to this question: why am I here and who am I? And what is the point of this life? Right? And so that for me is, it's coming for you, one way or another, it is coming for you. And the reason why it comes for you is because you are that divine spark. You are one with that energy that is going home to yourself. And so that, and a lot of times people, not only do they forget this recognition of who they really are, but they forget how powerful they are. They feel that life is just happening to them all the time, that there is nothing that they're choosing into, that they don't have any claim over anything that is happening in their lives. And as you move into this remembrance, you realize, gosh, there's a co-creative energy that's happening. You may not be in charge of every single detail, but there is a co-creative relationship that you have with the divine, with energy, and with your life. And so it's that relationship that really gets cultivated during sacred ceremony too, which I just love. It deepens that relationship to yourself and to life.
Absolutely.
It makes it so much more beautiful.
Yes, I just am so excited. I feel like I'm like, okay, this weekend I'm going to do my
We're
own
doing
sacred
this weekend.
ceremony bath again, just bring it in, reclaim those spaces, connect within. And I hope that all of that, and I love what you talked about, is like, regardless of someone's spiritual journey, it's okay, and if you're worried about someone else's journey, it's fine. What's your journey like? How are you going to connect in with yourself? And knowing that we all have our own connection, we all have our own nickname for that divine source.
Yes.
And holding that sacred to each and every one of us is going to look different, and that's beautiful, and that's fine. It's just respecting that within others and saying, hey, good for you for choosing what works for you and remembering who you are. Even if I might not remember, it's okay. We need people to cheer each other on and to love each other in the process, because love is the greatest source of all knowledge. When we connect into sacred space is where it happens. It's where we connect in that space. And so I hope that in this conversation, it really helped you have this desire to create sacred space, to have sacred ceremony, to reclaim those bits and pieces of who you are. You don't need to work with a shaman. You don't need to work with anyone to have that sacred ceremony. Now, I would encourage you, if you're interested, obviously, to find someone who can help guide you in those ways, in ways that you might not know, or can teach you those wisdoms, that deep wisdom that we've lost along the way, because it's definitely impacted my soul so much. And I know it's helped Candace as well. So there's so many tools that we have that if we close our mind to everything, there's not just one way. And there's so many different ways, but it's honoring what your soul and what your heart is teaching you. And you can't be led astray if you're connected to your heart, if you create that space. And so I've just loved this conversation. I've loved diving into this and reaffirming, and even knowing that we have that within us. We are that divine connection. So it's just us remembering and reclaiming.
Yeah. And something that just came up to me as you were talking, a lot of people, we talk about this speaking to the divine through prayer, right? And there's different ways to interact with the divine. Prayer is definitely like this conversation, like have a conversation with the divine. The more that you speak with the divine and interact with the divine, it's just like any relationship, the stronger that connection, that stronger that energy of that exchange over time. It strengthens that relationship. It was always there, but if you're not engaging and you're not interacting with the divine and the sacred, and you start to get back, you start it up and you start using that in your life, at first it's going to feel a little strange, and because it's newer and it's something you're coming back into remembrance with. But over time, that energy and that exchange of energy gets stronger and stronger. That relationship and that interaction between you and the directions and the divine gets so strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing too, is that this energy of doing sacred ceremony evolves. It evolves over time. You may start really simple, and then you may do something more complex in the end, because you're able to really engage the divine for longer periods of time because you've had more and more practice, or you've integrated this lifestyle into your existence. And so it's just something that just came to my mind, because we think about ways that we interact with the divine, and some people, we pray, some people do sacred ceremonies, some people dance. And that is a moving prayer. That is an interaction between them and the divine. But that when someone has energy moving through them, through the arts, through dance or music, that in a sense is a ceremony. That is a sacred ceremony. That is a prayer. That is an exchange of energy and relationship between you and the divine. And that is really what sacred ceremony is about. It's about healing, but it's really a transformation, and all those things happen. But it's you strengthening this relationship that you have with a divinity that's all around you and inside of you. It only helps you remember, but it also strengthens that relationship you have to the divine, which I think we long for. We long to not only remember who we are, but at least for me, and that's what brought me to sacred ceremony, is I longed for not only the remembrance, but for that connection. It's like, I knew God existed, but I wanted to feel it. I wanted to feel it. And this is what it did for me. It's like creating a sacred space and doing sacred ceremony is like, not only do I know it, but I feel it. Like I'm feeling it moving in this space, and the communication and the interaction and the change is happening. Like I'm seeing the results in my life. And there was no turning back at that point, because it was magical. It's a beautiful way to live and to see life, that this is possible.
I love that. Oh, so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
So I think that this is a perfect way to kind of wrap up that section, is, knowing that we have that divine. All of that is so pure and so beautiful. The next episode we're going to have is kind of a recap of all of our favorite memories for the past 13 episodes. Yes. I can't believe we hit that. And so it's going to be so fun to have that.
We completed season 1, Jen. Can you believe it?
No, I can't. It's been a learning curve. Obviously, we're still learning about audio and video and all the things, but it's been such a great experience. And so thank you for listening and for continuing on this journey with us.
Thank you for watching Modern Sages. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We are so grateful for your support. We have an Instagram account as well as on Facebook. We have our podcast, which is the Modern Sages podcast.
And we are so excited to launch our Gifts of Spirit classes in our Modern Sages Mystery School.
Absolutely. Oh, we're so excited. So we're going to link the information below in the show notes for more information about our Mystery School.